project. As you know, that project consists of 4 phases. 3 of the 4 phases are virtually complete. Phase 3 is not, although the town has been working many years in attempts to try and bring Phase 3 so that all the Speedwell Redevelopment project can come to fruition. As the council is aware, we received a draft complaint by Speedwell LLC, Speedwell Associates number 1 LP, and Speedwell Associates number 4 LP, which, as I understand it, are called Marshall entities, the owner of the Phase 3 property. As you also recall, on August 6th, his counsel, Mr. Rosenbach, and Ms. Kahn, who I understand is Mr. Marshall's spouse, appeared before the governing body to reiterate their threats of litigation and to allege a number of other things, including but not limited to their view that the town has defaulted under a 2015 settlement agreement with their client. They also indicated that Claremont would be here tonight in support of their position. They also sought to have what they represented to be their contract purchaser, Claremont, designated as the redeveloper for this phase. The day after the meeting and the day after these misrepresentations were made to the council and to the public, we received a letter from Mr. Peter Wilson, who represents Claremont, indicating very clearly that Claremont is not under contract any longer with Mr. Rosenbach's and Ms. Kahn's client, and indicating that Claremont had nothing to do and no participation in this draft complaint. I have reviewed this draft complaint, which is quite lengthy and quite descriptive, and I just want to sort of hit some of the high points here for the benefit of the council and for the public. I'll stick to some of the more substantive disputes, and I will not go into the myriad of material misrepresentations that are made throughout that document and other correspondence that the town has received. First of all, the notion that Morristown has defaulted under the 2015 agreement is preposterous. In paragraph 69 of their complaint, they state that the above contract, referring to the 2015 settlement agreement, obligation meant that Morristown would both quickly approve plaintiff's proposed plan for development and quickly work with plaintiff to amend the existing redevelopment plan in conformity with the proposed plan that had been approved. That is absolutely false. Couldn't be further from the truth. What the 2015 settlement agreement provides is an obligation for both our clients to diligently work in good faith with Speedwell to develop an agreed-to plan. And so contrary to Mr. Rosenbach and Ms. Kahn's assertions, the 2015 settlement does not require the town to approve whatever redevelopment plan they propose. And of course, they do not point to any language in the plan that supports their position. They just sort of arbitrarily assert that that's what it meant. In fact, the town and its professionals have worked extensively with Mr. Marshall, his entities, and within the last few months or so, Claremont, who was for some period of time a contract purchaser on this site. The other allegations here, I just want to hit really the high point, and that is this insistence that there be a pilot and this allegation that the town is not permitting an appropriate amount of development on this property. And there were numbers in this draft complaint about 156 units, and they're only able to do 24 units, which is all a bunch of, quite frankly, this is a highly legal term, nonsense, because it's comparing apples to oranges. It's referring to property that was once owned and is no longer owned by Mr. Marshall. The reality is that this administration has worked extensively with Claremont and its representatives to come to a plan that would include 65 units on this site. Now, the administration doesn't have the power to just approve it. Obviously, it has to go through the process. And the administration has indicated that it is willing to bring that plan forward to the governing body for consideration at the appropriate time. 65 units on this site equates to 86 units per acre, which would make this plan the second most dense project in the town of Morristown. So this is a significant project if it goes forward, and it is not one that in any way is unfair to the property owner or in any way inconsistent with what was anticipated to be built on that project. The sticking point here and the reason for the threats, the intimidation, and the bullying is because the property owner wants to get a certain purchase price, $6.5 million. That was the price that was included in the pro forma that we looked at. And in order to be able to get its purchase price, we're advised that a taxpayer subsidy is needed in the form of a long-term tax payment. And the town is just simply not going to be bullied by Mr. Marshall or anybody else into providing it with a taxpayer subsidy pilot in order to support an artificially inflated purchase price. And that's what's really going on here. We have reviewed the pro forma submitted by Claremont, which calls for a $6.5 million purchase price, which equates to about $119,000 per market rate unit. When you consider a 10-unit affordable housing set-aside, which seems to be an exorbitantly high, very high purchase price. So, the town's position is that it will consider an application for tax abatement. The town has granted, as you know, tax abatements in the past, but it has done so for reasons that are rooted in the public interest, not for the sole purpose of artificially inflating property values for owners. And that is something that I know this administration and this governing body has taken very seriously. There are instances in which tax abatements are appropriate. Certainly years ago to incentivize development when tax dollars were not flowing was a justification. Where there are hardships related to properties in redevelopment areas, such as expensive environmental remediation, infrastructure improvements, and so forth. These are redevelopment areas. These are blighted areas. It is not uncommon for there to be substantial investment of dollars that are needed to make these properties viable. And in those instances, tax abatements or pilots are appropriate for consideration. But to use that concept as a sole base, as a basis to just increase land values is not a concept that the town believes is appropriate, and that appears to be, where we are at the moment. I have responded to Mr. Rosenbach and Ms. Kahn with a letter dated today, August 13th. That letter is available to the public. It will be available at Town Hall, wherever else, and we certainly invite public participation in this matter, and we invite the public to review the letter. And we'll just end by saying this, reading sort of the last paragraph of the letter, which states that, notwithstanding the foregoing, the town remains committed to the appropriate redevelopment of the site and will continue to meet with you, your client, and future contract purchasers in attempts to achieve that goal. We don't want to lose sight of the fact that redeveloping this site is really the focus and what the town hopes to accomplish. However, if meaningful progress is not achieved in the immediate future, the town reserves its right to use all of the redevelopment tools at its disposal to achieve the public purpose of redevelopment of this site. And so we hope that, notwithstanding some of these tactics which we view as threatening, bullying, and intimidation, we hope that reason will prevail, parties will get to the table, and ultimately that there will be a good project, a fair project, and a project that will be good for the town of Morristown. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.